A little bigger. Downloads. This is going to be crimes against persons. Oh. View. Admit. Guess I'll move you all back here. Uh-huh. No markers over here. Okay, so move that camera out a little bit. Grim law. Day before. Oh.
Paul Brady.
Yeah, I'm really curious to see how many people actually show up here in person because it might just be you two.
Oh, it's funny.
Yeah, because that's one of those that's always interesting to see. So it's this class is one of my bigger ones where the actual class comes in. I've got here it's criminal law, policing, and then research. And I think by the time we get to research methods, there's only like 4 or 5 people that actually attend live. Of course, it's a dual listed one, so some of them are graduate students who just aren't going to be able to make it in. Let's do the spotlight. Continue. And I can see this and move it over a little bit. So, crime law one day before fall break. And so it's always interesting to me to see like who shows up, who doesn't, because ideally I want you guys here because there's just a better dynamic, more communication, that kind of thing. But if you can't, you can come in through there. But then the online stuff's for those who can't do either. And that's one of those things that you miss out on a mode of communication if you can't actually be live. And it's not quite the same thing if you're online. And that's the thing. We're starting to get better at it, being able to have balanced conversations, but it's still very difficult. Unless you lose out on the opportunity, like you just have to go straight online. I don't like the fact that it's so difficult to show how applicable things are or how the conversations with tenants and lessons apply across different areas. But today we're talking about violence. All right, so let's see how much we have here. Do we want to do? Ooh, okay, so there's some stuff we will have to talk about. All right, so we probably won't get through this one today. If we did, I'd be like, oh, you guys want to do a review real fast and start with that first exam? So there's only 2 exams in here. One's basically for the first half, one's second half. Neither one are going to be very, they'll be difficult, but not super difficult as long as those quizzes and stuff you guys take those, so it's available. They're really not that difficult. But I don't think we're going to get that far because I just saw we haven't talked about the violence stuff and the relationship stuff. That's going to come up in this section. We certainly must people. That's one that takes longer. Last time we were talking about the role of violence in society. You guys remember anything we were talking about? Because I don't. Let's see, it's back here. So I know we moved into, let's see, looks like everybody's here. Good. So I know we were talking about violence. We were talking about where those lines are drawn. And said basically when you start really getting into it, the line for the more serious types of violence, the one that actually involves physical contact, that would be battery. When you start looking at battery, that line right there. I'll just hang out here for a second. I know. It's a conspiracy. Probably wait 30 seconds. Yeah, so that dividing line we were talking about violence. It's And you have the verbal aspect, the non-verbal aspect, and the actual like contact aspect of it. When you get into actual contact, that's where you separate out assault from battery for the most part. Battery being the more severe of the two. There's some wiggle room. So if you have actually battered someone, usually what happens is if you're going to be offered a lower charge or something like that, assaults, that kind of package them together. So that line for battery reminds me of that game you play in junior high school. I'm not touching you. You know, as soon as someone's distracted, like, of course, that's battery, but it's actually this right here. That's the line right there. Any contact whatsoever. You just touch someone on the shoulder, you've battered them. Depending on what's reasonable. And so it's like, depending on the context of the conversation, what's going on, the situation itself. It's like that singular touch might be enough. You got the most serious of initial levels of violent crimes against you, where we start getting off into some more specialized stuff. Say specialized, not really specialized, it's just awful in different ways, right? Because it's just straight violence. I guess you could look at it as most pure because it's not for other purposes, it's just for the purpose of violence. When you start getting to some of these others, it's not just violence, it's for other purposes too. As we get into a real conversation about malevolence in people and what it actually means, because it's something that in this field you have to see it at some, or you will see it. And so that's something that's really difficult for people to kind of wrap their heads around, because it's not just that these are violent acts, it's because the nature of those acts is sent off into the directions that it is treated the way that it is. And that's why we start to move into this next one. And I'll actually share this because I was just showing the stuff from last time. Just PowerPoint statute 4. Did I share the right one? It looks like I did. The only downside is I don't know if I can make this big enough so I can see. Actually, I can. Okay, cool. Now if I can move this somewhere I can see it. It's too big. I guess I'll leave that over there. Hopefully I can see that. All right, so mayhem, when we start getting to mayhem, sometimes it's in the assault statute, sometimes not. Usually they'll pull it out because it's something where you start to move beyond what it is, the normal, I guess, types of violence that you encounter. This isn't your barroom brawl or anything like that. This is something completely different. As I was thinking about this, a picture popped up in my head. How many of you have ever seen the movie? It's a Clint Eastwood movie from the 1990s called Unforgiven.
Awesome.
Okay. Well, if you had, it's one where older, he's of course old already, standard things. God, that guy, I don't know what's on there. But the basic inciting incident of it is there was a saloon lady of the evening kind of thing who was victimized. The person who victimized her sliced up her face for that she was a prostitute. She's trying to make money. He was irritated with the service he got. Boom, that's what he does. You're right over here in this man, permanent disfigurement, that kind of a thing. You've moved beyond just the violence. You're doing this for the effect that it's going to have on that person for the rest of their life, whether it's in the reaction someone gets from their face or something like that, or if you're looking at functionality, that kind of a thing. If you look at well, you don't have to look very hard at any culture to see it, right? It's here, it's everywhere. Yeah, I don't know if I need to go too much more into that kind of thing, but that's when you start getting into man. So your purpose there has changed. That's why we start to treat it a little bit differently. It's no longer just about the violence. It's about this person's going to carry that with them. That kind of a thing. Oklahoma statutes, they talk about maiming. That's another movie. Harry Potter. I didn't mean to kill, only to maim. Right there. Right there. I'm just looking to seriously mess you up, so that way you won't ever forget this. That kind of a thing. And that's literally what you start looking at here. Every person with premeditated design to injure another inflicts upon that person an injury which disfigures appearance, disables any member, organ of the body, substantially diminishes physical vigor, that kind of thing. It's guilty of maiming. Let's see. Every person who designed is disabled himself from performance any legal duty, existing anticipation inflicts upon himself any injury where he is so disabled is guilty of maiming. Wait a second. What was that second one? You can do it to yourself, right? So realize what you're dealing with here is also at the same time from a completely different world almost, right? You got those who look to harm others to the point in time that they are disabled forever, right? Or at least disfigured. People will do it to themselves too.
What's the difference between that one and the mayhem?
It's just a different name. It's basically, so different states will call it different things. So here in this state, we don't have mayhem. I think Arkansas has mayhem.
Okay, I was like.
Yeah. And so it's a state level one. It's just, you'll see it here. It might be separated out as maiming. It might be separated out as mayhem. It might be separated out as, or it might just be embedded within the standard assault and battery statute, depending on the states. And so this is where we have it here. That one's kind of interesting because, so we were dealing with the violence here. We're also dealing with people who are trying to find their way on, I guess, disability and that kind of stuff. It's not just that it's criminal to take advantage of that kind of stuff. It's that if you start doing this to yourself, you're also guilty of this crime. That kind of thing. Here's what it says. Means or manner immaterial. If you start getting into that, it's like, what kinds of things can you do? And it's like, ooh. Oh, this is a premeditated design. That's anything that could be anything from making it look like an accident to throwing acid in somebody's face. Right? Whole wide range of things there. Yeah, whole wide range of things there. Maiming by disfigurement. Injury must be such as calculated after healing to attract observation. Disfigurement, which can only be discovered by close inspection, does not constitute maiming. That's when I start talking about things to the face. How much of a scar is it? How bad of a scar? How big? What kind of effect does it have on people when they see it? Is it something where it looks like a war, a person's got split face open, or is it just a small little line? Right? Depending on what kinds of, medical technologies are available, that's going to be big in receding, right? You have a plastic surgeon that's able to take care of it right away. It might be a little hairline thing, then you're no longer in maiming. Okay, design inferred. Yeah, design to injure, disfigure is inferred from the fact that inflicting an injury which is calculated to disable or disfigure, unless circumstances raise the reasonable doubt that such design exists. So basically what they're saying there is, if you're taking an action that you know has the purpose of permanently disabling somebody, you do it. Yeah, we can kind of infer that by taking that action, you meant to do it. That kind of thing. You know that that's what's going to happen. That's why you're doing it. So, let's see. Criminal trial of bar. When it appears that upon trial for maiming to another person, the person has so far recovered, no conviction shall be had. Just in case you still get better. Because sometimes those things take time to heal. Ooh, I almost want to show you some pictures of what stuff looks like, how bad it looks at the time, and what it looks like over time. If you look at it 1 month, 6 months, a year, that kind of a thing. But that can be kind of hard to look at. We won't do that just yet. If you guys want to, let me know. All right. Penalty for maiming. Of course, it's more than, guilty of a felony punishable by imprisonment not exceeding life or fine not exceeding $1,000 or both such. Yeah. Oh, here's another one. Mutilation. So that one's pulled out separately because of the cultural stuff. That's one where, I'm not much that I can actually talk about. Some cultures, they engage in that behavior. It's sort of like a rite of passage. Not necessarily the most healthiest of things. Doing it here is a crime, right? That's that thing where we talked about it in here. This is forced cultural assimilation to some degree. Anytime we're dealing with criminal law, this is where that comes in. We don't do that here. Right? We don't do those types of things. That's going to be everything from removal of parts to yeah, sewing things and that kind of stuff. It's like, yeah, we don't need to do all that. Won't go too heavily into that one because it's not the cultural aspect of it, but it's the relationship aspects of it that we'll spend more time on here in a second, because cultural can do that to some degree, but the relationship aspects will span all cultures, and that's all. Robbery. Honestly, I probably should move this one up. When you get to robbery, of course, you're back into things that. Big question here is, why did this one been here? What do you guys think about this? What's your target whenever you have a robbery? I see it this one. Person or property? I don't know. I mean, I quite literally, because depending on what system you're looking at, it'll be classified different ways. All states that I'm familiar with classify robbery as a crime against persons, but I'm not that familiar with that many states. Federal UCR, though, when you start looking at how they track those numbers, crime against property. So it's like, depending on what system you're looking at, it can be either way. This one's kind of one that's a little. But when we look at it in terms of the morality line, that's where you can make the distinction. So if you're really looking at it, the moral line, it's this thing right here that makes it so important. It's the presence of people, right? It's no longer just the property that's the victim, it's the person involved, right? And so we'll come back to some of this stuff whenever we get to some of the burglary stuff, when we get to property. This one's in here because, well, you're dealing with people quite directly. There's a couple of things I should probably talk about here. So in basic elements, we talk about some of that trespass, right? That breaking of the seal. So trespass or taking is that first one. That, and well, you say carrying away, that's sometimes called asportation. Basically, anytime that you move something, you carry it away, that kind of thing. Personal property of another with the intent to steal. Is there anything else I need to say about that? Not really. Home invasion robberies. Home invasions are ones that are a bit different because those are more serious in nature, that kind of a thing. So that's where it's not just a burglary. It's a burglary that evolves into a robbery or might have that specific purpose. Those are always interesting because they don't happen too often, but when they do, usually it's the person knows that there's someone in there, that kind of thing. So it's really, in terms of the most serious, it's like that would be probably the most serious. All right, robbery, wrongful taking personal property, possession of another, immediate presence against his will, and accomplished by means of force or fear. Right, and so that's where you start getting into why it's a crime against persons. I can exert force against the door, correct the door and be replaced. Force against the person, something different. And so we're talking force or fear. Employed either to obtain or retain possession of property to overcome resistance to the taking. If employed merely as a means of escape, it does not constitute robbery. Ooh. That's kind of an interesting little caveat there. What do you think that means? You all tell me. I can see that fear. Okay. So fear is an interesting one because that's a purely psychological thing, right? Emotional, but you're basically talking psychological. So that's gonna be something that this one, when we were talking about violence last time, how to see it objective is gonna be very difficult in some instances. You'll have to basically infer that almost at every level, right? How is the person, what were they, how were the words they were talking, how were they coming out, shaking, that kind of a thing. What kinds of things happen to you? Is that something that produced a reasonable fear, that kind of thing? Force is a bit more objective because you can see some violence there. You can see the results of it to some degree. But when can you use it? When will it escalate to something else? And so this one is kind of tying off into burglary to some degree, right? So same situation, you've broken into a house, you know someone's in there, you're ready for it, you pick what you need, right? You planned it out. That's exactly what you wanted. That's really awful, right? What happens if you break into a house, you didn't think someone was in there? Whoopsie. Okay, I'm gonna try to get out because that's not good. If I'm trying to escape, then I can use this right here. You'll have different crimes, but won't necessarily escalate that up, right? Boy, just as a means of escape, you've not moved into robbery. Okay. Interesting conversation. Because this is where it gets really interesting and where things get so complex. Because anytime you deal with individual situations, you have kind of an understanding that this is the generalized flow for how this thing works. But when you get into the actual, like, okay, here's what happened. It's like, okay, this is a crazy story. What exactly happened here? Ahmaud Arbery. You've heard that name. The name sounds familiar, right? What happened in that case? Oh, he didn't have the case. He's the guy who got shot and killed, right? Was he the one who got the shotgun round to the chest, shotgun shell? You guys don't know what I'm talking about? Oh, this has been too long. It's only been what, 2-3 years, something like that. It was in the news again I think it was last year whenever everybody was convicted for it. Let's pull that up for a second then. This is an interesting one because it's something where you can't draw a clean line at all, and everybody wants to. And it's like, yeah, well, if someone comes up to you with one argument, what you should do is provide them the exact opposite. You have someone provide that other argument. Again, then you provide them the exact opposite. Because it's like, what the hell? What's up? We don't know. That's why it takes 12 people to go through it and figure it out. Ahmaud Arbery. I misspelled it. Yes. Okay. Let's look to see what it says. The murder of Ahmaud Arbery. 25-year-old black man was murdered during a racially motivated hate crime while jogging in Satilla Shores neighborhood in Georgia. 3 white men who later claimed to the police that they assumed he was a burglar pursued Arbery in their trucks for several minutes, using the vehicles to block his path as he tried to run away. 2 men were armed in 1 vehicle. Their neighbor was in a 3rd vehicle. After overtaking the person, Travis, I guess from the 2 vehicle person, pointing his weapon at Arbery, exited his truck. Arbery approached Travis and a physical altercation ensued. Travis fatally shooting Arbery. So what happened was, there's video of it. I'll talk about the 3rd guy in a second. Basically, what you'll see in the video, because it's from the 3rd person's perspective. Good golly, is that not all horrible? You see Arbery running down the street. You see a truck head him off, and there's a guy in the back of the truck with a shotgun. And dude makes a beeline right for the guy in the shotgun. With the shotgun as he's exiting the truck, kind of thing. It's like, you went and got into a physical altercation with someone who's pointing a shotgun at you. Who's wrong here? What were you doing? Was he burglarizing? Does that matter?
Did they not call the cops?
Oh, they did. What had happened was the situation for that. let's see. They had repeated burglaries at this house that was being built. I'll show you the video in a second. And they put up cameras, repeatedly calling the police. One of those neighbors, I think, was a retired police officer. And so it's like, yeah, they're in communication. Don't you worry. They're in communication, right? And so you got cameras going off. Someone's burglarizing the house next door again. All right, well, let's go see. This guy's jogging. He's not jogging. That's a lie. Because he's, what, 15 miles from home, something like that, and he's wearing boots. Like, yeah, I'm sure he's jogging. No, he's not jogging. That one, because this is Wikipedia, is false. All right, let's see. Come on, Harvard. Don't care about that. New York Times, what we know. Continue. Chased by white residents of South Georgia neighborhood, convicted of murder, federal hate crimes. Yes. I might have to pop over to YouTube because I can find the video over there pretty quickly. Let's just do that. We'll leave that one up. Guess there's something good there. I spell it again. Okay. I don't think that this video actually shows the shooting itself, but it'll show the lead up too. Because I've seen this one before. This one's a short one. There it is. There's the other truck. There's the guy exiting the truck. There's the one in the back. There you go.
Did they just catch him robbing that house?
Yeah. Yeah. That's one of those things that I don't like to talk about that one. Yeah, he'd been repeatedly in that area. It was caught on camera repeatedly in that area doing that kind of a thing. So it's one of those things. Does that matter? No. Why? What's he doing? That house isn't lived in. What's he trying to do? He's trying to escape. What's your role? Citizen? What are you trying to do? Be a police officer? You're trying to protect somebody else's. Right? Oh, that's was it worth your life? Because that's what you're doing, right? It's worth everybody's life, apparently, because everybody involved got charged. Even the guy who's recording this video right here, he got convicted. I forget what his sentence was. Probably some number of years, right? What control did he have over this situation? Well, he's standing by and recording. It's like at best, it's like really you're benefiting the prosecution, right? Ew. Yeah, so that's the only one that's like, I really don't know that whole thing is just so sad because what do you have there? Someone who's doing something they shouldn't be doing. Then you have someone who's also doing something they shouldn't be doing, and then they do something they shouldn't do, and whoever lives, that's whoever we're going to punish. It's like, oh my goodness, that's just awful. Everywhere you cut it, it's should you ever charge a person with a loaded shotgun? No. Who is that reasonable? That person who is trying to protect property has had enough elements here to say that I should be valid in affecting this kind of a force. Depending on the state, that might actually be a yes too. So it's just whoever makes that decision, whenever it comes down to it, that prosecutor who's got that discretionary decision gets to decide, okay, was that person trying to affect an escape, or was it that they were trying to make an attack, right? Or something like that. In this case, this guy's running down the street and they've been following him for a while. It's like, dude, yeah, you should not be doing that. Don't ever do that.
And then somebody's waiting.
Yeah, yeah, it's like it's the danger in the it's a danger element of danger in the situation is what it is, right? Who's the aggressor here? Originally, it's this person. They're trying to leave now. Okay, why are you chasing them down? Oh, we don't like that, and that's why it's that way. And so it's like, well, yeah, these people all got punished. It's like, was it deserving? Oh, wow. Right? You look at the statutes there and it's like, hmm. And then you look at that there, it's like, okay, there's other directions he could run. How far has he been running? I don't know. Is it a couple blocks? How tired is he? Are they just going to keep chasing him? Are they going to give him that chance to escape? Or have they decided they're not going to? And they'll do it. What do we do? I don't know. It's like that's the stuff most of the time. When you start getting into those very finite details, it becomes very, very muddy, very, very difficult to see. And so this one's literal. You can look at it from both ways. Both sides are literally valid. They're literally valid. Anybody who takes a solid point on either side, though, it's like they have trouble seeing that. I don't like that so much, but that's life. Let's see. So that was that one. And so they'll tell you more about it, that kind of thing. They do that with the whether it was this one here, it's talking about the what is it, jogging versus burglarizing. It's like that. Honestly, it makes no difference whatsoever. It's kind of funny. What's going to matter? They view it, and this element right here. It's like, ooh, that's rough because you can literally see it either way if you want to. Degree of force immaterial. Yeah. So any force whatsoever again. But when you start forces.
So if he was to live and he was trying to escape, he wouldn't have been charged?
Oh no, he'd been charged for burglary maybe. But if they had let him go, they wouldn't have been convicted for anything. They wouldn't have done anything wrong. They would just provided information over to the police. They got involved. That's why citizens arrest never do. Never ever do. I mean, if you have to and you have no other choice, yes, that's a good thing to do. But literally have no. Right? Same thing for affecting death on something. It's like you have no other choice. Ideally, you try to restrain that person at a point in time where it's like you have no other options there too. It's like that's how that works. You have to exhaust all of your options if you're going to start getting into that territory. If you don't, you.
So they shot him and he lived. They wouldn't have been charged.
No, they probably would have been charged with stuff, but it probably wouldn't have been well, it would have been murder, right? If they had stood there, they wouldn't have shot anything. They'd have let them take off, even with the guns and everything right there. They've not done anything wrong. It's that element of choice and control again. You're dealing with someone who's engaged in criminal activities. We have someone who's directly in violation of the law. We'll say, and we're not talking about him, we're saying hypothetically, directly in violation of the law. Who's got the power to control the situation? We're looking at every single time. That's why like the self-defense stuff, the duty to retreat. You've given the situation over entirely to the person who's criminal. That's why it's so dangerous. On the positive side, that those who follow the law are supposed to do everything they can to keep that from happening. That's why, because people will do that. People are evil sometimes. And regulating that's not something you can really do. We do it by here's what results from evil, that kind of thing. And who's evil here? I don't know. Not everybody. Or nobody. I don't know. I don't know the personal situations. So you can't make that distinction. But it's really, really difficult if you start looking at who's the aggressor, who's in control of the situation. And this is one where as steps involve the introduction of someone who is actually trying to protect something, maybe we'll say hypothetically, don't know, certainly could just shoot somebody. Don't know. But we'll say that that's the case. That they are there just trying to protect something. Well, now that person who is already doing something criminal, if they make a choice as they're trying to flee to attack you instead, how many options for escape did you give them? Ooh, was it enough? That's a hell of a question, isn't it? It'd be like talking about like booby traps in people's houses. Yeah, don't do that. Really bad idea. Don't do that. People do that though. Ooh. Yeah. All right. Fear is an element. We talked about that. Fear of unlawful injury, immediate or future person's property, the person robbed, relative to his. And so basically, it's not when you start dealing with fear of what is. Those are the best kinds of fears because I don't necessarily have to present a danger to you to get you to do something, right? Is you find where you're vulnerable. Sometimes that's the person himself, sometimes it's not. Oh, once I find that, there you go. Give me whatever you have. Okay. Value is not material. And if it's taking in secret, you got to pickpocket. Yeah, I took that off you. You had no idea. That's not a robbery. There's no force there. That kind of a thing. All right. Next, degrees of robbery. Okay. First degree, inflicts serious bodily injury, threatens person with serious bodily injury, fear of immediate serious bodily injury. So that's basically what you start getting in there. So, second degree, any person guilty of robbery. Okay, what does it say? That's punishments. Then I'll put the second one in there because usually what happens is it'll say anything not in the first degree is robbery in the second degree, but I might have left that part out. Those are sequential. Maybe it's the next slide. No, the next slide is completely different. We'll talk about that one in a second. See what the next couple slides are. Domestic violence. I want to talk about that or this. We'll start talking about those together, kind of thing. So first, remember we start talking about is it better to talk about relationship stuff or is it better to talk about actions? I really don't know there. This class is hard. Here's a nasty one. Here in a minute, I have to explain rape shield and the fact that everybody still wants to find out whether or not it was asked for. And that's going to be an argument that comes up whether or not they actually make it. And it's like, that's disgusting. But it will, yeah, it's going to come up. And if it doesn't come up, good. But realize when you get back into deliberations, it probably still will come up. We're gross. All right, so we'll separate this out from the relationship stuff in by when you start looking at these actions and those who do it, usually it's not the stranger danger kind of situations. You all know that's not going to be any new information to you, hopefully. The risk of strangers is not zero, yes, but usually if you start looking at friend groups, and usually it's the most dangerous for those that are kind of like satellite friends, the acquaintances. Start getting it's like the friend of a friend kind of thing, where it's close enough of a social relationship to disarm you, but close enough to you know exactly what kind of dangerous thing you're actually dealing with there. Right? That's how those always work. Not always, but commonly work. When we start looking at this and how it's been dealt with across time, you know, it says forceful rape and sodomy. So this will start talking about some of the older. Today, it's well, they'll make some distinctions there, like they'll have a separate statute for sodomy and other things like that sometimes. But basically, we start looking at the definitions here. It's the differences there are less. I should say less than in previous years. But we'll get into that in a second. Okay, so the first thing it starts talking about is forceful rape. Carnal knowledge of a female forcibly and against her will. And so when we talk about the common law elements, it was something that only applied to women. Like this was not a crime that applied to men at all. You had to be female. So males were the perpetrators, females the victims, right? So on both sides. So it wasn't just females were victims, it's the perpetrators were male. Right? Some jurisdictions started to address that over time. This element right here, that penetration, however slight is sufficient to complete the crime, that's actually one that's still it's not unchanged. So basically anything at all, it's done. Right? That's exactly where that line is. Here it also mentions instrumentation because that's another thing that can get brought into it. This element, that's the one where things have changed a little bit over the last couple of decades, probably 3 decades. If you look at the history of this and the domestic stuff in a second, probably the biggest social, cultural, legal kind of thing to look at would be the Violence Against Women's Act of 1994. So that's going to be the thing that starts to put some teeth into domestic violence crimes and that kind of stuff, but also starts to highlight some of the issues with sexism in the law kind of situation. You look at it, it's like trying to remember all the stuff the Violence Against Women Act covered, but basically that's kind of the key signal where if you look at court cases and that kind of stuff, you'll see an appreciable change in how police officers, court systems dealt with these types of crimes before and after. But this consent element, that's the one that is paramount for, well, this whole issue. We also have some definitional issues, so we'll talk about that. First thing, consent. Consent's one of those things that it is always the same kind of thing, no matter really what venue you talk about. What is consent? It should not be something where it's quiet. That really worries me.
Aren't you approving?
Yes, voluntary. And if you're getting into the legal side, usually what you want is this other one right here. They'll say intelligent or knowing. Basically, that you agree to it kind of thing. We're doing on time. It's 13 minutes. I won't make it through all of this. Voluntary and intelligent. You know what you're doing when you say yes, and you're saying it of your own free will on the courts. Yes. That's it. However, this issue historically is one where it's like, ew, 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 ew. Implied. It's implied consent. I can't remember if this thing even talks about that. I don't think it does. Arguments made where just being in the presence of someone to go along with them and to do something is implying that you've consented to be with them in a position where you might open yourself up for this kind of thing. Ooh, that's absolutely horrible. But people make those arguments when you're starting to get what's consensual about your interactions with someone. To what degree do those interactions extend? Where do you reasonably place those limits, and how do you treat that across all people you've been engaged with? That's where you start getting right back in that rape shield stuff. Okay. Who does what in what ways? Who's acting in what ways here? And so it gets very, very, very difficult to deal with. Historically, what we would do is we focus on that forcible. Let's turn this off. Sad thing is I won't remember I turned it off later. So I'll set my phone down and be like, oh yeah, it's been a day. Somebody's called me. All right. That element right there. I guess, I don't know, this is kind of be an inference of my own. I guess the way that they used to look at it was that if you really didn't, you'd fight enough that you'd be physically injured. Right? That's what that was. They focus on that forcible element. What kinds of injuries do you have? That kind of thing. I actually remember, good golly, I think I probably was all like 6, 7 years older when that came out. Lifetime movie. No Visible Bruises was what his title was. Not an older, could have been a teenager, I guess. It was dealing with this thing in the 90s. It was dealing with situations like this. It was a Lifetime movie trying to identify the same problem. What? It's, yeah, this thing can happen without having bruises, without having anything. And it's not that hard to do, right? And so, what do we mean when we need this? It's like, well, ideally, we're talking about will. We're not talking about actual violence again, but people have a hard time distinguishing the two, I guess. I don't know. We've made good movements, but you guys probably don't know where the dangers are now. Let's see, we got 10 minutes. We'll talk about some of those dangers now. I don't want to talk about this because there's a few different ways. I've never heard anything about that. You can see that board. I don't know how well it comes up for you guys online. It says recorded. That was something I noticed that basically one of the central themes for, I guess, life these days and moving forward is the amount of data and information available from you all, that kind of thing. It's like everything you've ever written online is always available. Even if it gets deleted, it's still out there somewhere. That kind of a thing. Have you guys ever heard anything about apps and stuff like that that do these kinds of things where you can record your consent? It's more of a big city thing, I think. Yeah, they've got apps and things where you can actually record your consent. So that way you don't have to worry the following morning whether or not anything's gonna. Yeah. That's the kind of stuff that pops up now. I could pop up, you'll find apps for them on your phone, you'll find contracts online. Yeah, it's like, seriously. If you're going to do this in a safe way, ideally, it's like, honestly, you should be doing something like that. Maybe. Actually, no, you shouldn't. Why wouldn't you want to? Ooh. Okay, we'll do it another one. Let's probably take a look at that. Okay, so this one's probably well before your time. But maybe, just maybe if I say the name, somebody will remember it. You ever heard of somebody called, I probably spelled that. Mattress Girl? Hilarious name. Basically a meme before memes, I guess, if we think of it as. 15 years ago, maybe? I don't know. I'll look it up in a second because it'll pop right up. Ivy League school. Girl starts carrying around a mattress with her for the rest of the semester after she claimed she was raped. There was no response to what happened to her. That's why she was carrying around a mattress, right? Was it criminal charges, court cases, something like that? I think the kid ended up getting tossed out of school, the male. And then in a court system, you come over to this kind of thing, and well, what is it that you have recorded? What inferences can be made from it? Okay, now think about every text message you've ever sent to anyone ever. Ooh, yeah. So basically what had happened with her is she was initially attracted to the person that she was victimized by, or wasn't victimized by. Now, what side of the story you want to take? I'll show it to you in a second. You can take sides if you want. She had texts that she had sent to that person inviting certain kinds of behaviors. Those behaviors were performed. Okay. Is there any problem with this then? Ooh. This is why this area is so damn dangerous. Like in terms of life, it's like there's probably not any area that's more dangerous for you all than anything in this one. Why? Any kind of withdrawal consent. Shit. I've got it in print over here, but I'm using my words right now, and oh no, there's only one of those you can actually prove in court pretty easily. Where we right back at it again, right? We created a whole system to address this. We created ways to make people feel safe while engaging in dangerous behaviors. As a way to, I guess, try to increase safety, maybe. For some, it might, maybe. What it also does is invite even more danger than what you ever realized. Right? Ooh. So how are we going to handle it moving forward? Good luck. I don't know. That's a solid no. It's like, yeah. Like, what was on. There's a professor, Peterson. I think it's Peterson, Jordan Peterson. had talked a little bit about some that's related to, I think he was talking about, it was Rick, he's talking psychology and makeup and that kind of stuff. But he mentioned it's like, what you should do is this topic's an uncomfortable one. Most people can't talk about it openly with people. That's usually your first test right there. But your best way to handle it is to treat your phone, to treat yourself, to treat everything like, I don't know, Fort Knox. That's how I would do it. Come on. This is just a solid no. This thing burns to the ground. Way too dangerous. But people in your age group do this stuff all the time. Oh my goodness. I'll show you her story now because you can see it yourself. Because it's horrible because it's literally when we can't make a distinction there. Now look, first thing that comes up. Political activist, performance artist, college student, developed national reputation with the performance art mattress performance. Carry that weight. So did it for a year. I guess it was only 10 years ago. It stopped making art. Became, I don't care about that. Right here's where it starts to talk about it. Columbia University complaint. University found person not responsible. Filed reports, insufficient grounds. Right? When you get into the full details, what you'll find out, insufficient grounds, these text messages. You would ask for certain behaviors, whether you got that and more. Ew. Right? Yeah. Society is not good at handling that. And that is not good. All right. So statutes here. We got 3 minutes left. Rape is an act of sexual intercourse involving vaginal anal penetration accomplished with a male or female who is not the spouse of the perpetrator and who may be of the same opposite sex as the perpetrator. Okay. So first thing you'll notice there is it also has a cutout for spouse. That's one that's not really applicable anymore, but historically was. What else do I need to say here? Male or female, that's one of those that's identifying. It can be either direction there. One other element I need to mention real quick, and what was it? Got 2 minutes. I'm going to try to see if I can remember it. But it is. This is so dangerous. This whole thing is dangerous. How people carry themselves related to this. Well, if you look at it, like this is one example right here of an extreme related to people and interactions, right? The next thing we'll talk about is going to be domestic violence. And so when we start looking at that, you have to think about that as, okay, it's a domestic, but it's a violent situation. Isn't that already an extreme? And for this field, it's like, no, it's actually not. That one's not extreme. It's so common. But does it develop into the extreme? Yes. It also develops right into this thing too, right? And so we'll start picking up with that on Monday. We'll finish out this chapter and then we'll do a review and then we'll have our first exam. We only have 2 in here. And then I'll pop out some more quizzes and I haven't gotten the feedback on the assignment out. I'll probably do that in the next 4 hours or so. That's a wild guess. We'll see how it works. Anyhow, you all have a great day. If you need anything, let me know and I will catch up with you on Monday.